I'm Tobias Revel.
And I'm Radha Mystery.
And this is Futur-ish, a podcast about how nothing is new and everything has happened before.
We've been working and playing in futures for over a decade of hype and bluster amidst increasing uncertainty and complexity.
In each episode, we explore a recent event or signal for its historical context and speculate on future possibilities.
And make it make sense for people like you and me.
We have the amazing Tracee Worley joining us today. I am particularly excited about this because, Tracee, while I've followed your work for a little while, I saw you give a phenomenal talk at LA Design Fest last year about Black women predicting the future, and it was kind of focused on the archives of Octavia Butler. And then I had a chance to see you again in Dubai at the Future Forum, which was great. And so I just thought it would be really cool to have you on the pod, have you talk a little bit about what you've been up to, dabble a little bit into some signal territory, and then see where it takes us.
Thank you so much. I am a designer and storyteller. I started my design career at IDEO, and I was in their Design for Learning studio. I worked as a systems designer and had the fortune of working on a lot of the future of projects, mostly around the future of work and the future of education, that kind of thing. I think what put me on the pathway to starting my own practice was the pandemic. I think I became really obsessed with just existential risk and volatility. So during that time, I really turned to a lot of feminist sci-fi to process. So went back to Octavia Butler, Margaret Atwood, Ursula Le Guin. I feel like these kinds of writers, they're like Cassandras. They saw so many things coming before the rest of us caught up. So yeah, a few years ago, I branched out and started my own experiential futures practice called Radical Futures. And I'm trying to marry design futures methodology with that kind of creative prescience that comes from feminist science fiction. I'm really big on creating like immersive experiences that let people encounter the future with their bodies physically and not just intellectually.
I was really fascinated by this because you really do emphasize this idea of the experience and the embodied experience of the future. And I'm wondering how is that changes the way we conceive of the future?
I think that my gravitation towards experiential futures comes from my first career, which was in education. My design degree is actually in digital design for learning, and I was an educator for like 10 years. But I've always been a fan of experiential education, not just telling people to read a book, but experiencing education through the body, through the world. And I think that same thing applies to futures. Any kind of immersive storytelling lets people physically encounter what a possible future might be. I think it's more powerful than just reading about it or thinking about it. When you're actually like holding an artifact from a possible future in your hands, it allows for a different kind of engagement. So I hope through my work to really foster a sense of feeling the future, feeling your feelings, because I think we're going to need it in order to survive what's coming. One of the most powerful experiential futures projects that I have recently worked on, it actually was the project that led me to create Radical Futures, was a participatory futures project in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood neighborhood. And for those who don't know, it was colloquially called Black Wall Street. So it was an area where it was Black middle class. There was an oil boom in Tulsa in the early 1900s. And although Black people were systematically excluded from the oil production wealth, they came up with other businesses to serve these kind of nouveau riche people. And that neighborhood was violently attacked and even firebombed in 1921. I worked with a former client of mine who was responsible for facilitating a process between the city of Tulsa and community members who were going to be receiving 56 acres of land back from the city to the community. And they had to decide what to do with that land, who's the land going to benefit. There was a real desire to do community ownership of lands. But this particular client, she reached out to me and she was like, hey, this is a really exciting project, but it is very hard for anyone involved in this to imagine the future, because there was not a lot of trust between the community and the city, rightfully so. There has never been a proper acknowledgement or apology for the harm that Tulsa. She was like, I think we can bring some kind of futuring or radical imagination to this group just to get people to like suspend disbelief that something else is possible. So that was probably the hardest project I have ever worked on in my life. But what we ended up doing was creating a fictional organization that ran this community land initiative, gave it a brand, gave it a name, and just imagine what this organization has achieved 50 years in the future, and sort of use that to dial our way back to the present. I think this is a project that's going to be unfolding for many, many years, and I think I played a very humble and small role in it, but I think I played the right role for the right time. So in the beginning of the project, where there was a lot of conflict between the city and the community, and even between community members. Bringing in experiential futures allowed people to see that, for the most part, a lot of them wanted the same thing, and maybe a sense of excitement about a future that things could be different.
What do you think it is about fiction in particular that liberates people into being able to think about what might be possible?
I think when you are reading fiction or playing around with design fiction, you are processing with just a very different part of your brain than the more analytical or straightforward ways that we try and plan or decide together what we want to do. I think that bringing in that kind of imagination, it just allows for something else that might not have happened otherwise.
I've run that experiment on myself when I had come out of grad school in London, and I was really terrified to like start my own thing. So I said, let me start a fictional design studio. I mean, it was real, like I was doing real projects, right? But there was something about it that kind of like lowered the barrier to entry to get stuff out into the world. And as a young designer, I think that half the battle is just getting shit out there.
There was actually a running joke that the name that we gave the fictional organization would end up becoming the real name, and which was a bad idea because it was like a mouthful. But the thing that they did create, which is called the Greenwood Legacy Corp, is very much modeled on that first kind of imaginative fictional organization.
And one of the ways I think the fiction works is that it allows you to temporarily suspend disbelief about your current situation, imagine yourself in another position, so you can get better perspective on the present. But there's a responsibility there. When you unleash a fiction on the world, there are some people who are going to take it seriously, and we see that in its worst excesses with conspiracy theories. You know, there's a heavy responsibility that comes with what it's not just a playful fiction, it's something that's going to shape the way people think about the world. And if that's based on a thoughtless fiction, it can have really negative consequences.
That's why this project, I say it's the hardest one I've ever done, because there's a lot of responsibility and accountability it takes to facilitate a process like that. And also just to mention, like, many of these folks were like Black elders, and asking a like 80-year-old grandma to imagine this fictional organization is just something that I'm like, oh my God, these people are going to hate me. I feel like I kind of graduated into like another level of being able to bring this kind of experiential futures to serious issues.
I know you wanted to share a newish project you're working on.
Yeah. So I am launching an immersive storytelling project called Letters from the Future. And it is a speculative fiction snail mail club, where subscribers will receive monthly letters from people living in a near future. Those people will share artifacts from their timelines and like wisdom for how to navigate our timelines better.
And how do people subscribe?
There is a really long URL. I don't know if I should say it, or like, can we just...
We can add it in the show notes. If you want to say it out loud, that's fine too.
So you can learn more at posthouse/letters from the future. And posthouse is spelled POSTHOU.SE.
We're racking up the countries who are making domain name money at the moment. That's
right.
Swedish domains. So Sweden, Tuvalu, Who is it's making
What
that?
was the other one? AI?
Anguilla.
The other thing that I'm working on right now, Women's History Month is upon us. We're recording this in late February. I am imagining the bicentennial of the Seneca Falls Convention, which will be 2048, 22 years from now.
Wow.
I'm imagining this kind of speculative future where women are leading in the post-MAGA era. I feel very strongly that if we are going to take the right turns in the right direction, it's going to be because women led. The Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 was a gathering of 300 people. It was a 2-day gathering of men and women, but mostly women. And it really kicked off the modern day suffragists movement in the United States. They left that 2-day experience with a document called the Declaration of Sentiments that just sort of kicked off the next, few decades of women fighting for rights and the right to vote. One of their biggest inspirations were Native American women of the Haudenosaunee, which is the Iroquois Confederacy, which is the oldest democracy in North America. And yeah, it's a matriarchy. So these white women visited with the Haudenosaunee women. But, unfortunately, because of the racial relations at the time, the Haudenosaunee women were not, adequately credited for their role. So in this 2048 convention, the bicentennial, I'm imagining just a conference that is really honoring their contributions to that early feminism and suffragette movement. So I'm very excited about that. You can learn more at senecafalls2048.org. I'm hoping that there will be some woman-led or feminist-led organization who's fighting the good fight right now, and maybe they don't feel like they have the luxury to talk about the future, but that this kind of sparks some conversation about the importance of contemplating the future of women. Because although things feel very dark and scary right now, there are a lot of reasons why we should actually be fucking amped. Women are going to be the largest wealth holders in the United States come like 2035. But those are the two big things on my plate.
I think one of the reasons that I love your work is I feel like oftentimes it kind of just comes from what you're really interested in. It's not like a client-led kind of initiative, in the nature of some of the work that Tobias and I tend to do. What prompted the Letters from the Future project? What made you wake up one day and be like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to push it out via snail mail?
Well, snail mail is very much connected to the signal that I'm bringing because I am just so tired of these damn phones. So
I hear you.
I think there is a big part of just how I am feeling. And also I think this, I have been freelancing now for 4 years. And this is really the first time I'm kind of launching a personal project. And it's taken me a while to just realize I don't have to wait for a client to ask for something to do it. I'm actually surprised it's taken me this long to remember that I have the capability to do that. Yeah, I think after the last few years of kind of bipping and bobbing around the future space, I have felt like, one, I don't want to hear another man tell me about what the future holds. No offense, Tobias.
Tobias, be quiet, okay?
Listen, Tracee, all I do is the editing and make sure
he's in a house of
working.
women, okay? He's in a house of women, so he's good. Very strong-willed, smart women.
I think because of, just what MAGA is doing, the Epstein files, the Giselle Petticoat case in France, I have a lot of rage right now that I need to channel into something. And I wanted to do something that allowed me to write and be creative.
Yes to analog, but everyone, please still listen to our podcast.
Yes.
Because we do have fun doing it. And Tobias needs other things to do with his time, to edit for hours and hours and hours for every episode. So maybe we can kind of shift course a little bit to what you wanted to talk about today and the signal that you've brought, because I think there's a through line to maybe some of the past episodes that Tobias and I have recorded as well. And so I'd love to jump in and revisit some of those things.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm building upon the things that you have covered already. So I want to bring in just something that is new that I heard about that is impacting more like adults or young adults. But yeah, I feel like my phone makes me miserable, if I'm totally honest. And I'm the type of person who like silences all of my notifications on vibrate. My phone is not constantly pinging in the way that some people's do, but it just feels like such an energetic nuisance. And yeah, I'm an 80s baby. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 21, and I've always been a very like slow adopter. Like, and I had shared before that I used to teach high school in New York City. It was a constant war for attention. Like the kids were like addicted to their phone. I think we're all addicted to the phones. But I recently heard about something called the Offline Club. It started in a place called Cafe Brecht in Amsterdam. Back in 2024, these two guys wanted to offer space for digital detox to people who were wanting less screen time and to connect with other humans. So the service that they offered is you pay like €7 and your phone gets locked up in what they call a phone hotel. And in the cafe, people just like sit and do analog activities. They do like crosswords, they draw and they journal. There's also like times where you can socialize. And watching a video of it, it's actually kind of incredible because I realize how long it has been since I've seen a site like that where like there is a cafe and there's not one phone or one laptop. And it officially launched in February 2024. Within 2 months, they had 200,000 Instagram followers. Now they're over 500,000.
The irony.
Yeah, I know.
The irony of all of this is like when you want to do something analog, you still have to promote it digitally. But they've had a lot of their reels go viral, like in the millions of views. And the founders like recently quit their actual day jobs to scale the operations. So yeah, it's been making me wonder, like, is this cafe potentially a test case for whether it is possible to escape the attention economy? I think it's fascinating that people are paying to have their phones taken away.
You could put your phone away for free at home in the comfort of your own home, but there's like the novelty of it maybe.
They have scaled to 10 countries in little over a year. They've got 16 city chapters. There's one in London, Tobias, if you ever want to
There
visit.
is, yeah. They've got 32,000 followers on Instagram.
They have this kind of like start a chapter in your city kind of scaling model.
Like a franchise.
They've also started offline retreats in the Netherlands and France, which are definitely like not a new concept, but maybe new to Gen Z and younger millennials. And they also have an offering for businesses. So like if you want to do analog business event or team experience, they will facilitate that. I love that you guys say nothing is new. There have been digital detox retreats for many years. I've been noticing probably since 2014 those yonder packets at concerts that lock up your phone. But you know, I saw a stat that we're spending up to 7 hours daily on screen time. 49% of people admit to phone addiction, and 89% of US adults check their phones within 10 minutes of waking up. And many people use them. 87% of people use them while watching TV or eating. And I'm telling you, this impacts me personally. I am actively trying to find ways to do something else. And I have pretty good discipline. I don't need to like pay to get my phone locked up. But yeah, I think what makes this example maybe slightly different or significant is just that they're building an economic model around it. So that €7 is buying you boredom as like a service. Next time I'm in Europe, I'm going to go to one of these. But there is this enforcement mechanism. So instead of relying on like your individual willpower of being able to put your phone in your bag and not look at it, there's this kind of social contract of people keeping each other accountable. Someone else is taking that phone. And yeah, I think this is a test case for whether this kind of like manufactured scarcity of attention can scale into something larger. I think when people are paying money to have less access, it signals that maybe something's coming for the attention economy's core logic. I don't know, but that's sort of the question that I'm asking.
There's a trend here, which is a worry of and a rejection of the sort of socioeconomic norms of the browser addiction culture that we have. But a lot of this, and even the way that like the Instagram is carefully crafted and the branding across the different clubs is the same and the messaging lines up, speaks to me very much of a spectacle. And I wonder if you're paying €7 to go and be part of one of these spectacles, potentially be photographed and videoed and feature on the Instagram, how much of that is also you sort of performing the values you eschew, which is fine. That's part of it, versus, as you said, if you genuinely just didn't want to spend that much time on your phone, you would just develop mechanisms or use the screen lock. And again, it's not always that straightforward, and there's lots of different reasons. And there's something similar to what we talked about with fiction of going to another place to be like, the rules have now changed because I'm in another place and therefore it's changed. But I also, skeptically look at some of these things and think how much of this is spectacle versus an actual attempt at change.
And I will say maybe it's okay that it starts out as spectacle. If it begins to build the behaviors in a repetitive manner over time to where it's becomes part of maybe not mainstream culture, but like a faction of culture. I think what's so wrong with that?
Yeah, it's a protest. It's a protest movement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Can I share with you guys what my sort of dystopian worry is with this?
Yes.
Because I'm also trying to connect the dots between this example and just like the return of a lot of analog infrastructure. Like vinyl, people are getting into film photography. I heard that like print magazine subscriptions are up. And so it's interesting. I feel like they're not like waiting for policy, like they're not like waiting for Australia's age verification on social media. Like they're using a business model to do something kind of more bottom up. And then it makes me wonder, like my nightmare scenario is that the offline club and anything else that's kind of like it shows to the market that there's a demand for phone social experiences. Imagine like Instagram sees that and Meta launches like IRL spaces. So these phone-free cafes where you check in on Instagram before you lock your phone away, and then you earn a badge for attendance, and then you've got offline streaks that go viral. I'm just sort of wondering, at what point is the market going to catch on that we want analog, we want to log off, and what are they going to be offering?
I would struggle to imagine Meta doing that, for example, because I would expect that these people who are paying €7 are doing it because they distrust Meta, and so they're not probably would be willing to then go and pay for Meta to go away.
Things like this are always just like, well, here's a new experiment in how to do capitalism.
Right?
The thing that's going on in parallel is, of course, the cases moving through the US courts right now, which are looking at the addiction of social media. The challenge is that's really interesting is they're doing it on design. The premise of those prosecutions is not social media is addictive, you need to do something about it. The premise is you have designed it to be addictive and it's now causing harm, which is the case that was made against the tobacco industry, which is you knew this was addictive and you intentionally designed and marketed it thus. And so that means that you may end up with regulation that changes the design, which then means that potentially the Metas of the world will have to revisit their core design fundamentals, whether it's the interface, the algorithm, the way that content is moderated, et cetera, et cetera. So those two things are sort of happening in parallel. There is a kind of pull from Gen Z millennials with these cafes and offline club, and a push from regulation to say, actually, there's something quite fundamental here that needs to be addressed.
I just can't. I feel like they would find another loophole.
Well, you could have said the same about the tobacco companies in the 50s or 60s. I
That's
would have
true.
thought that you couldn't imagine that happening. And equally, you could have said the same about the car companies before seatbelts. That they would never take that responsibility. And then they went, oh, actually, let's do that because they did the bottom line maths. We're like, that's actually going to mean we sell more cars and more people buying them, so they'll be safer. So it could be that's just the hard calculus is, actually by making these things safer and redesigning them, we maybe don't have the turnover in users and eyeballs, but actually the quality of that engagement, the commitment of it, the willingness of people to subscribe, etc., is increased.
The founders of the offline club said that their goal is to make phone-free social experiences as normal as like smoke-free spaces. So I think that is their mission. I wonder if like real analog authentic kind of experiences can really resist and survive being commodified. Or is the attention economy just so vast, so strong that it's going to be able to eventually absorb every form of resistance?
Yeah.
I think another thing that the offline club kind of made me think about is, if this continues to scale with this particular demographic, will there be like a class divide of attention where, who can afford to actually disconnect? It's the same way that these tech bros don't have their kids using iPads and all of the tech that they make.
Exactly.
So, if you're a service worker, if you're a delivery driver, or just any kind of gig economy worker that, you're relying on some sort of platform, you can't disconnect. Like, your livelihood is going to depend on your constant availability, while the offline club is serving like the laptop class, or people who have jobs that, they probably have weekend mornings off. They have disposable income for cafe and coffees and
disposable time.
Yeah, they can like silence their notifications without getting fired. Maybe what kills the phone is some other kind of device. It's kind of hard for my brain to imagine like what it is, but it will just be a whole other kind of interface that it's not gamified in the same way as the screen-based interface has been. Maybe it has kind of more natural speech elements to it. You can navigate through the world. Maybe it has more of an invisible feel to it. That maybe makes me feel somewhat excited that there could be a future where we don't need an offline club cafe, because the interface of the thing that's keeping us connected just is not that invasive.
I think that is sort of harks to a fantasy that tech bros have had for ages, which is this idea of basically normally a female helper in their ear of some sort, whether it's from Spike Jonze's Her or Siri or whatever it is, has been an idea that's been reciprocated for a couple of decades and continues to fail because it's just not information rich enough. When you're looking at a screen, you're getting multiple dimensions of information, whereas in audio, you can only ever get linear information. For anyone who's used like an automated helpline, it's completely crap compared to a website. Every 5 years, someone's going to revolutionize the keyboard with a gestural interface, and yet the keyboard's stuck around since the 1940s because it's just very good at what we need to do. My thought go to something that the futurist Bruce Sterling said a few years ago that's always stuck with me, which is eventually everything becomes airlines. It's just kind of really boring,
gets
kind
the job
of badly
done.
run, but it gets it done.
Yeah,
and you complain about it, but
you can't live without it.
So Tobias, you're saying we are stuck with these phones?
I would speculate strongly that the dexterity of screen-based interaction, just thinking purely as a designer, is so much more useful. And it could be that the nature of that screen and where it goes changes. And obviously there's things like various glasses and AR have attempted to replicate that. And that may end up working if computation get effective enough. Thinking about interaction design, I would just struggle to see that you could achieve the same fidelity of stuff that you could with an audio stream that you can with a screen. Back to that push-pull thing, this is my speculation. I think the pull of a generation of people who are fed up with the way that they're treated by the social media companies and by even their app developers and iOS developers and everyone else, plus the push of regulation finally catching up with the harm that's done, just kind of airlineifies everything. And it just goes, we'll just go for a fat medium middle, which is inoffensive, makes enough profit that everybody's happy, but isn't going to like get us into any regulatory trouble.
I think what I get excited about, I'm always excited about the early moments of people resisting the algorithm, resisting the business model. Yeah. And even if it does get commodified, which it usually does, there's something very interesting that we can learn from those kind of early examples of someone bucking the system. Yeah, these are the kinds of things that I'm watching as I'm trying to launch my own analog experience, which will need to be promoted on every platform.
Look, Tracee, we're going to have to start sending out this podcast on vinyl now, and that's going to be expensive and annoying.
I'm going to be selling my snail mail out of my trunk.
And that could be like a pop-up experience.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, anyway, Tracee, this was super duper fun. Thank you so much for coming along on this ride with us. And yeah, everyone, please check out Tracee's new snail mail Letters from the Future project and Seneca Falls.
And I should mention all of those things will be on my website, which is radicalfutures.studio, which is easier to remember.
And that will be in our show notes as well after Tobias takes 16 hours to edit this. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. This is so much fun.
Thank you, Tracee. Super fun.
And you have a subscriber in me.
Yes. That's the only reason we did this. No, I'm just kidding.
That's 6.